one play at a third time. So let's not focus on the great game. Let's focus on the great play. Let's play with passion, let's play with love, let's play with responsibility, let's play with respect for one another. How you feel? How you feel? Good. Morning. I don't want you to focus on, because if I ask you right now, do you want to have a great game? All y'all gonna say yes, right? I want you to focus on, I want to have a great play. I want to have a great play. Then the next play, I want to have.
We are back with another episode of Inside the Locker Room, HBCU football on Inside the Locker Room at that. And today is a special one because, you know, as always, we do record on Sunday. Me and Michael try to record on Sunday. We try to talk about all the HBCUs, but today we're just going to be talking about Grambling and Gram Fam. And today we do have a special guest joining us, Nathan. How are you, man?
Man, I'm doing good. How about y'all, man?
Good. And if you just want to introduce yourself really quick to the audience, you know, we're live on YouTube. So if you just want to introduce yourself to the audience really quick before we get going and talking about Graham.
Yes, sir. I am Nathan McCarter. I am a GSU football color commentator for this season. I was the color commentator for the 2023-2024 season, as well as 2024-2025 season. So, the whole loop of being in the SWAC space, being in the Grambling space has been an honor because I was a kid that grew up. My mother went to Grambling, my grandfather went to Grambling. So I grew up in the Grambling space for a long time. So to be able to continue to grow the HBCU space, I feel like from a kid watching people like Greg Dillon, who played basketball and football as a quarterback, to Kincaid in 2016, it was a lot of different quarterbacks I've seen. I saw Doug Williams' son play quarterback in 2011, win a SWAC championship. So, like, I love HBCU football. I kind of watch more FCS Division I than I do FBS football. So, I'm a Grambling guy.
Yeah, I like how you mentioned that, you know, you watch more FCS and FBS, and me and Mike are in the same boat. You know, ever since we started this HBCU segment, that we just been watching more FCS than FBS. And we say this all the time. If you really watch HBCU sports, you're going to see it's actually a lot of competitive, more than you think. And the SWAC is, you know, as competitive as it gets. And Nate, I know you talked to me earlier. You wanted to talk about Graham and PV, but talking about Graham right now, what are your thoughts on Graham's season as the season closes out? You know, they started off, they were winning games at first, but me and Michael have said in the past, they were winning games, but they were too close. But recently they've started winning games. They beat Jackson, they beat Bethune-Cookman, games that people did not expect them to win. So just what is your thoughts on, you know, Grambling's season as they close this season out?
I mean, this to close out the season, it all comes down credit to Mickey Joseph. Mickey Joseph, for quite a long time since he's gotten here, all the guys that he had from his first season came from the last coach. If I'm not mistaken, the last coach was Hugh Jackson. So he had Miles Crowley, he had different guys like Javon Robinson, Andrew Jones, who obviously went on to Ole Miss, and then obviously he recruited a lot of players, but he decided to make the smart route, and he went with a lot of redshirt freshmen. So he has a lot of redshirt freshmen, true freshmen that he recruited a lot, has a lot of walk-ons. I just did an interview with Josh McCormick, the kicker, today. He talked a lot, very highly about Mickey Joseph and about all the guys being able to like play on one accord. It doesn't matter if you're first, second, third, or fourth string, or you know you're just a practice squad player. Like everybody can play. He didn't recruit any players that couldn't play. So based off the season of the guys we've seen from Byron Eaton Jr., Keith Jones Jr., those are guys who we didn't see their face a lot last season. So to see everything come accord and how there's been up and downs within the season, especially for maybe the first 4 or 5 games was up and downs. And then for us to find a way to win no matter what, if it's Hayden Benoit throwing bombs to Andrew Frazier or Tyson George, or if it's special teams making plays like Delano Franklin for special teams as well. The defense is, oh my goodness. We know the defense has number 1 in sacks in the SWAC, and then they're ranked 12 in FCS Division I football. So you when you're talking about Grambling, when we talk about Grambling, they're always going to have a defense. I'm pretty sure y'all know throughout the year they've always had a defense, no matter who's been that defensive coordinator, Jason Rollins and everybody else who's come before him. We know that fact for a fact, but Grambling hasn't necessarily it's almost like every 3 to 4 years we get like a solid quarterback. If we're being honest.
Agreed.
So with everything how it's going, I don't want to go too far into it. Grambling, they just found a way to end up winning, and the only thing that probably held Grambling back as far as not being in heavy implications, because obviously it's holding on by a string, was the SWAC scheduling. Because you got PV for the first game of SWAC season. PV already played Texas Southern, so that was their second SWAC game, and we were only playing our first, let alone the State Fair Classic. So it's just unlucky.
Agree. And Michael, I know you said the same thing. This season has a lot of up and downs. And you said at times, you said, look, I don't know. I think this is going to be a repeat of last season because, we started seeing some similarities from last season. But the thing that you said, Nate, is Graham found a way to win. And that's what we said. And we said Grambling needs to find what their identity was this season. We believe their identity is that defense. You mentioned how every year their defense is good no matter the coordinator. But this year, that defense, in our opinion, is putting that team on his back, the offense on his back to win these games. Ever since T-Set went down, the thing was, how is Grambling going to win the games without these quarterbacks? One, you have quarterbacks stepping up. Two, you have the defense stepping up. But, Michael, I'm going to ask you this. What are your thoughts on that?
It just shows that, in football, in the game of football, it's all next man up mentality. And when you step out on that field, you got to remember two things. One, you got to be focused. And two, it doesn't matter what class you are. You can be a freshman, sophomore, or junior or senior. It doesn't matter. Class doesn't matter. What matters is how you perform and where your mind is at when you step out on that field, because you can't be nervous. If you're nervous and you're stepping out on the field, then that's going to kill your performance, because fear kills performance. And what we saw from Hayden is that fear was not in his mind. If anything, his mindset was, it's my time now, and I'm going to make my time well known as I'm the quarterback now. And it might be for these last two games with Alcorn and Southern. I mean, you just never really know the outcome. Now, was T-Set's injury, it was unexpected, and, we don't wish anything bad on anyone, but things happen for a reason. And, what happened with T-Set was, it was like, he did what he could, but at times, sometimes when you do what you could, it could be a little too much to where it could cause you to get hurt or towards the end of the season. We've seen that numerous of times. But I think what we saw in, when it comes down to next man up mentality, Hayden specifically shown that when you step out on the field, you either going to come out with fear or you're going to come out with focus. And that's just basically the mindset in the game of football that you must have as a football player.
I mean, look, he made the passes needed to. Look, I'm going to say this at first. He kind of had me a little bit nervous, but, that was just the freshman jitters, But as the game progressed, he just looked more comfortable and comfortable and comfortable. And I'm telling you, like, I'm sitting in the band, first quarter's rolling around, and they're like, Deuce, are we going to win this game? And I was like, I don't know. It just all depends on how this freshman quarterback plays. And not going to lie, the Grambling started off strong. They were up. The defense stepped up. But when the offense came out to play, I just got a little bit nervous because we didn't have our starting quarterback in there. And we had a history. Our other two quarterbacks got hurt. This is our fourth string quarterback, a player who didn't even have a name tag on the back of his jersey last week.
A walk-on.
Yeah. But the second he comes in there, and I'm saying the second quarter, he starts to heat up. He starts to make plays. He starts to, get more comfortable in the pocket.
Mm-hmm.
By the time halftime came out, it's like this. This game is Grambling's. If Grambling can just hold on to it, if the defense can continue to do what they're doing, and if the offense can continue to play, especially the quarterback play can continue to, show that they want to win. I'm not going to lie. At first, throughout the season, Mickey Joseph, I've been a fan of him mainly because of the way how he recruits players. He brought a lot of freshmen back from last season. A lot of times, redshirt freshmen, they just go in the portal if they don't get playing time. He brought a lot of these players back. That's what I like about him. And I'm going to say this. At first, he had me a little bit iffy with the play calling. Iffy. The offense just had me iffy. But as the season progressed, and like I said before, without the quarterback play, I don't know what it was, but in my opinion, the play calling got better. It's more suited towards the quarterbacks and the offense. Michael, we said we want to see the wide receivers get, touches more. They've been getting more touches. The running back game, Trey Bradford didn't even play last game, I believe. They had a backup running back in. took his opportunity, rushed for over 100 yards.
Right. Yeah.
Now,
that was a big key because
yeah,
when that running back was actually Andre Cruz, he rushed for over 100 yards. He's usually when in the running back room, it's usually Trey Bradford, Byron Eaton Jr. If y'all know Clyde McClendon Jr., that's number 24, the big boom man. And then it's Andre Cruz, and then Tony Phillips, number 6. So like Andre Cruz doesn't even we know he's not even known for getting time, and to go out there and put 100 on there, oh my good, like that's saying something. So even to the quarterback room, like of course you have quarterbacks go down. We got introduced to Hayden Benoit against Alabama A&M when Darrensburg re-aggravated his ankle. So we saw that, and it was, of course, if we think about it, just credit to what you were saying, Deuce. Hayden Benoit, they definitely did structure the game plan towards him when it was time to play against Bethune-Cookman, because Alabama A&M, we're being real. I mean, he didn't score a touchdown, but he made the right plays, and he managed the game well, which was good enough for what was needed. But when you look at it, he was still playing in a sense. He was playing Darrensburg's game plan because that's what they suited the whole ball game to be around. So
and I think the way that he was performing against Alabama, like you said, on another player's game plan, you know, when it's not suited towards him, you know, that makes like them little slip ups. And I think that's the reason why a lot of people are like, okay, this Bethune-Cookman game, yes, it was close, but they were like, okay, this is probably why Bethune-Cookman may take the game. You know, you got a freshman quarterback who just came in, you know, at the last few minutes, I mean, like the last quarters of the game against Alabama A&M. So we don't know how he's going to perform in his first true start.
Right.
But when I say you take your opportunities, he took his opportunity. Look, I wish the best for T-Set, but like I said, like I told Michael, I would want T-Set to just, you know, rest. You know, you had a scary injury. Don't try to rush nothing back. You know, you stay on the side because you're only a sophomore. Stay on the sidelines. You can come back next year, you know. Right. But for Benoit, you know, you let him play. You know, you let him play. He proved that he can win. He proved that he knows he has what it takes to get the job done.
Right.
Yeah. I really have no complaints on him. I really have no complaints.
He's a walk-on. So like
right.
Walk-ons tend to, from especially HBCUs, even when y'all see you don't see a lot of crazy walk-ons for FBS, but FCS particular, when you get a walk-on like that, you already know it's something to prove. It's nothing. It's nothing else but something to prove.
Majority of the walk-on is basically the scout team, and you know, so you're playing against real in-time snaps in your first one. Like that's just a story that's just it's inspiration. You know, players look at that. Players who want to become college players, I say just look at that. You know, you take every moment you got. But jumping on to our next topic, like we said, the season is closing out, and Prairie View is inching closer towards that SWAC championship. I believe that Prairie View got to lose out, but I honestly, with their schedule, I don't see them losing out. You know, you play UAPB, you play Mississippi Valley, but I mean, basically, they're my lock to go to the championship. As much as I want Grambling to go, they're my lock. I think it was a bummer that Grambling had to play PV first in SWAC play, but I don't think anybody expected PV to be as good as they are, you know, this season. A lot of people, you know, had Southern winning the division, but with PV going to the SWAC championship, in my opinion, look, I think PV rightfully earned it. You know, they played their schedule. They almost beat Alabama A&M at that too. So I think they earned it. They have the right to represent the SWAC West. But actually, Michael, I'm gonna ask you this first. Your thoughts, because I know that you've been talking about the SWAC championship. You've been talking a lot about Jackson State, Alabama State, but your lock has mainly been Prairie View. What are your thoughts on the SWAC championship?
Yeah. First, I'm gonna start with Prairie View. You know, Prairie View has, you know, performed a lot better than, like you said, Deuce, what people anticipate. You have to understand that Prairie View has a lot of talent on that offense, and it's going to get better and better as the season goes along. And I think they earned the rightful spot to play in the SWAC championship. But you also have to understand this: all Prairie View has to do, and I wrote this down, y'all. The Panthers can clinch the SWAC West Division title by winning at least one of their 2 remaining games. It's only going to take one. And you know, it's pretty much that simple, because even if Prairie View loses, it's gonna be tied with Grambling, but Prairie View will still hold that tiebreaker spot, because as we just said, Prairie View beat Grambling in the State Fair Classic 28-13 earlier in the season. So it's kind of like, if Prairie View can just continue the momentum that they've been doing throughout the remainder of this season, towards the end, I feel like Prairie View can lock not only the SWAC West Division, but play in the SWAC Championship and possibly be a true contender against Jackson State or Alabama State, whoever. But I think Jackson State is going to lock that SWAC East division, because if you look at the remaining of their schedule, it just seems like the only team that probably has the capabilities of competing with Jackson State is Bethune-Cookman, and if possible, if the suspension, which also we're going to talk about later on, if that does not benefit the factor of them playing against Jackson State. So I think Prairie View is just the front runners of representing the SWAC West without a doubt. And that offense, and let's not forget that defense. It might not be the best in the SWAC, but hey, they're in the top 10. You know, they're there. So it's not like they're not worse, but they're good enough. So you have to understand that now is the factor. What team can finish out the last two remaining games of their season? Because these last two games, I don't know if people realize, but these games do matter, because who loses, someone takes over. That's just the bottom line of it. It's not.
Yeah, Michael. And I love the fact that you mentioned Bethune-Cookman, because look, before that big brawl happened, I was like, okay, look, Bethune-Cookman may not beat Jackson, but they probably will put up a fight, because look, a lot of people slept on Bethune-Cookman. Bethune-Cookman was better than a lot of people expected. And look, I didn't think they were going to beat Jackson, but I thought they would put up a fight. Now that you know, they got players suspended, I see Jackson taking that with ease, you know.
Yeah.
Also, as Alabama State's only hope is that Alabama State has to win out. Jackson has to lose out. And it's a bummer, because we were rooting for Alabama State to win against Jackson. Yeah. They got stopped at the 1 yard line. But, you know, if the championship comes down to, you know, PV and Jackson, ultimately I would have Jackson taking it. But Grambling still holds bragging rights, because Grambling is the only team in the SWAC that beat them. But Nate, your thoughts on SWAC championship preview?
I mean, when we really look at it, there was a good point somebody brought up on some sports fanatic page, not sure exactly, but I remember reading it, and it made sense that when we look at that last game with Grambling and Bethune-Cookman, that was technically, I mean, it got wrapped up, of course, but that was technically a elimination game, because Bethune-Cookman was honestly my dark night to go and beat Jackson State, and I'm gonna get into that in just a little second. But Bethune-Cookman losing that game to Grambling, of course, it counted towards SWAC implications, and Bethune-Cookman with that loss in the hole, it was old. That made them 0-5 on the road. They have yet to win a road game, and they have to play Jackson State on the road, if I'm not mistaken, for this coming up weekend. But when we look at it, Grambling still, with that win, it still keeps them alive, of course. Texas Southern just went on a streak at the start of the season, and now they're at the decline of the roller coaster right now. So when we're constantly looking at it, the top 4 teams right now in the SWAC would be Jackson State, Prairie View, Alabama State, or you can kind of say Jackson State, Alabama State, Prairie View, and then Grambling if you really just look at it. But when we look at the true picture of it all, the true picture would have to be Prairie View, of course, like Michael said. Prairie View wins 1, they're basically a lock for it. They literally have to lose out. The boogeyman from UAPB with the quarterback battle, and Christian Peters from UAPB and Cameron Peters from PV would just have to be an absolute brawl and shakedown for anything like that to happen. Then what was left? Mississippi Valley somehow upsetting PV. It doesn't happen. So Jackson State having to play Bethune-Cookman and Alcorn that shakes up the room for the East, for the SWAC East. I think Alabama State has a better chance of getting into the SWAC championship than Grambling has a chance of getting in the SWAC West position for the SWAC championship. So like, it's a lot to break down for sure. But of course, game by game, who knows? Mississippi Valley, they catch some people slipping. They just can't finish games whatsoever. So they're really over there. But of course, game by game. And I think if Jackson State was able to possibly lose to Bethune-Cookman, and Bethune-Cookman somehow get a win over there,
Yeah,
that's gonna be hard to do in Jackson. That's gonna be hard to do in Jackson.
But see,
Memorial's tough.
what we also have to understand is that now it's about who can control their own destiny going into these last two games. It's all about destiny control, and I wrote that down. And I know a lot of people gonna be like, "What does destiny have to do with last two games?" It has a lot to do with it because the what we have to understand is teams like Prairie View, teams like Grambling, teams like Jackson State, teams like Alabama State, their destiny hangs in the balance. And these two games, and like you said, Nathan, these games can go either way. And it's just really determining now is that the momentum is in your control. The momentum is in your control, Prairie View. The momentum is in your control, Grambling. The momentum is in your control, Alabama State. The momentum is in your control, Jackson State. So it's really just all in determining which team is strong enough to hold on to their destiny and represent the SWAC Championship. Because you also have to understand, the SWAC Championship is not just two teams battling against each other. That's part of the important reason. But this is also part of the fact that HBCUs and how important just the SWAC Championship is in general, because you got the battle of the bands in the SWAC Championship. You got to understand that too. You got two bands that are battling against each other. We all know how well the bands are in just the SWAC in general. So you measure that up, and it's just like that's just what it determines now, because the SWAC Championship is the face of HBCUs. The MEAC is the face of HBCUs and many other conferences. But like I said, the main important point here that we all have to understand is that destiny hangs in the balance for all the teams that I just listed and all the teams that are fighting in the last two games. That's just what it comes down to. Nathan, I know you can agree with me on that, because I've heard you say all the time that it's up to Grambling on how they finish out the rest of the season, and Alabama State and all that. So that's just what it determines. That's the point here.
Right. I mean, credit to that point. I mean, when we look at the landscape, it's a lot. It's a lot that goes on. This is probably, with NILs being in and a lot more scholarships being put in place for every single team in the SWAC. I mean, this is probably one of the best SWAC season in a little second, because it's died down since COVID. So this one been one of the best seasons in a little second. You got almost, it's a storyline for every single team. That's the best way to put it. So if it comes down to anything else, I mean, I'm Grambling all the way, but I based off what the facts are, you can't change facts. It would be Jackson.
I agree. Look, and I'm telling this to all the Gram fan people, and they look. Although I am Grambling's biggest critic, I am Grambling's biggest supporter, right? I am Grambling's biggest supporter. But you gotta look at the facts, you gotta look at the logic, you gotta look at stuff plays out. Honestly, and I think Grambling has it harder out of the other three teams that we just listed, because you play Alcorn and Alcorn, who beat Graham in the hole by 1 point last year on an walk-off field.
What makes it crazy, we're literally about to go into Alcorn's homecoming this weekend, so it gets nuts. And then to follow that, you got bye week, and then Bayou Classic. You got
Bayou Classic. And we say this about Bayou Classic. Just because Southern has a bad record this year, when it comes to the Bayou Classic, it's going to come down to whoever wants it more. If there's been years in the past where Grambling has looked like the better team, Southern has looked like the better team, and vice versa, they've lost.
I will say though, Southern finds a way to lose games that I've never seen people.
I agree. Look, I would say this year, for some reason, they just look they don't look good. But I would say in the Bayou Classic, you can never count out Southern. You can never count out Graham, regardless, because even like last year, Graham was not that good, and they still put up a close game with Southern. Yes, they lost, but it was closer than a lot of people expected.
Right.
But I just think out of the other three teams, Grambling has the hardest remaining schedule, because I still count Alcorn as a rival that can beat us on any given Saturday.
And then you have to think about
nowhere, that's what happens.
Mm-hmm. You have to think about this too. Grambling did just lose 18 players to the suspicion, which I think is harsh to me as far as the SWAC commission goes. But we're gonna get to that in a second. But what we have to understand now is that it's even harder now, because we don't know who all got suspended. Nathan, you might know more than we do. But as of right now, you have to understand that Grambling has 18 players in suspension. Now, how long is this suspension? We don't know. But if I'm Grambling fans right now, I'm like, hopefully it's not for the rest of this season, because how that brawl went, 9 out of 10, and how the SWAC and how people have questioned the SWAC commissioner over the years, is that either these 18 players are suspended for the remainder of the season, which is really going to be tough, because if the key players that we all talk about on the defense and offensive side are all gone, then it's just like, okay, now it's next man up mentality for sure. But I don't think it's too much of a concern, because Grambling has really good depth in their roster, and they've shown that throughout this season, especially the game against Bethune-Cookman, especially that game against Alabama A&M, which was a close game, even though it was a struggle. But Grambling has shown on the defense and offensive side that we have depth, regardless of, it's not just one player. It's not one man or two-man show. It's everyone. So it's just, that's really what we also have to question. Is this suspension going to hurt Grambling in these last 2 games, or will Grambling continue the momentum, which I think they should? But sometimes with suspensions, it kind of kills the team's momentum, because star players that you normally depend on the defense and offensive side, it's kind of hard to, adjust to that. But at the same time, like I said before, it's all part of the game. So hopefully this suspension does not hurt Grambling in these last 2 games, especially in the Bayou Classic. But I'm with you guys. The Bayou Classic, I don't care, because I've had so many people say, oh, Grambling's going to win the Bayou Classic this year. Let me stop you right there. I don't care if I like that. I like that. I don't care if Southern was, 2-8 or whatever the record is. I understand they're 0-6 in conference play. I get that. But it doesn't matter. The Bayou Classic has always been a competitive game, regardless of records. Through years, ever since this first started, it's been a competitive game, and it still is to this time. So it doesn't matter. So I'm just hoping that Grambling can continue their momentum.
Southern Championship will be beating Grambling in the Bayou Classic, and I think that's why they're going to work their butts off to make sure they do it. But, and I'm going to say this before we jump to our next topic. This game against Alcorn, it's like the stakes got so much higher because all these players are gone. And like, I don't even know who's suspended. It could be key players. It could be role players, but it's the next man up. Not to mention, you mentioned it's their homecoming. That stadium is going to be packed left and right.
Yeah.
With alumni. And
without a doubt.
With just an environment like that, every game is a must win. Literally. But if I was in the football team, you better be practicing twice as hard as you've been doing all season, because you got to win this game. And I think this game is more important right now than just the Bayou Classic, because if you lose this game, your season's done. You're just playing for the Bayou Classic at that point. But
yeah, it's a lot of like we talking about with the whole part of the implication of the SWAC East and the SWAC West. I mean, we go in there and we win against Alcorn on their homecoming. That says a lot already as it is. I think how you said Southern winning the Bayou Classic, being that would be their championship, aka their Super Bowl. It would be Grambling Super Bowl that just go ahead and win out, and then you end up with the best win streak, if I'm not mistaken. Because even if Jackson State goes on, they're probably like on a Jackson State or Alabama State are either on a 2 or 3 game win streak. Even if you were to go into the Celebration Bowl and win everything, you still wouldn't finish with what Grambling had if they were to win out with a 6 game winning streak. They wouldn't be able to finish with that. Grambling would be able to finish on a 6 game winning streak, then start the next season for the 26th season. And guess what? From there, you get to actually show people what it was the first time, because Mickey Joseph's first season, he had Eric Dooley at first. It wasn't him running the offense. This is technically his first season since he's been the offensive coordinator. So, I mean, when we look at the landscape, I'm ready for the Bayou Classic specifically to see. Hey, I'm gonna go ahead and send y'all the link. I know Michael, you'll be able to listen to it for the radio station, but I know Deuce, you'll be in the crowd, me and the band with live action. But the whole time I'm ready to see Hayden Benoit. We call him Hayden Benoit live, because every time he makes a pass, there's always something spectacular happening. So I'm ready to see that. Grambling has more to look forward than Southern does. Of course, just winning one game against us doesn't do a lot. But the headlines for Grambling coming in is absolutely insane.
Agree. And look,
Sure.
like I'm gonna say this because look, Hayden's supposed to be coming on our show in a few weeks. Nate, look, you got to get on it when he's on the show. You know, we love to have you when he's on the show. But look, jumping to next topic, we talked about the defense earlier. The defense has, in my opinion, has been their identity. But Nate, what are your thoughts? Just on Gremling's defense and the special teams going forward. I'm gonna say this about the special teams. At the start of the season, y'all had me disappointed because there was I think it was week 2 when they played Kentucky State, and the special teams had all them turnovers.
Yeah.
But since then, as the weeks going on, they look better and better. The defense looked better and better. The offense has looked better and better. What are your thoughts, mainly on the defense and the special teams?
I mean, going back to what I said earlier today, I got a chance. If you guys, there's of course we'll be able to exchange all the different social media tags and all that. But shout out to on Instagram, GSU Radio. That's KGRM. That's the radio where we have the Grambling Sports Radio Network. I got a chance to talk to Josh McCormick today, who hit the game-winning field goal against Jackson State. They had him come in. That was clutch 3 points, and then against Alabama A&M, 7 points for him, and he was able to there was no offensive touchdown scored by any skilled players. It was all on special teams or whatnot. So when it comes to the special teams, he mentioned guys like Johnny Stefano, Theodore Caballero, and then I forget his one guy. I want to say Garcia or something like that. I'll be able to quote it later because we have the audio file. But the special teams going from the slow start, from obviously having a big game against Langston, the Ohio State game, of course, and then Kentucky State and Texas A&M Commerce. Those were the games to kind of find our identity. And it fell on the lower end, but discipline is what discipline and perseverance is what honestly ended up having Grambling prevail for special teams. Because one stat for y'all is Grambling. I'm pretty sure y'all seen it. Grambling, they are leading FCS in games. I guess that any game they're trailing in the fourth quarter, they have like 4 or 5 comeback wins or something like that. So they're leading all FCS teams, like they're leading Dartmouth and all those other great FCS programs or whatnot. But it's all credit to, like we said earlier before the show started, Grambling's going to find a way to win no matter what, special teams, defense, offense, or whatnot. You see Mickey Joseph at times that tried putting Byron Eaton at the Wildcat just to switch it up just a little bit to make because of course, after a while, you start seeing some of the same thing. You start seeing some of the same things. I want to say Mickey Joseph absolutely went into his bag, and I don't think he's done.
Me either. Michael, your thoughts on the defense? Look, you're the one that told me, like, ever since week 1 against Langston, that pointed out the defense. And look, I've known about the defense, but to the level that I didn't really expect. Michael, you've been high on this defense all season. They've continued to impress you. Every week, you tell me this defense, they continue to shine. Even in their losses, you said they've had incredible plays. They've made good plays. Your thoughts?
Yeah, I'm going to stay on my opinion, and I'm going to basically just give y'all some stats and some moments that I wrote down. So, early in the season, Deuce, I talked about Grambling defense has to do better communication, because at times we've seen blown up coverages and blown up routes that just seem like communication just wasn't there. And it just seems like you have to give credit to the defensive staff and the defensive coordinator on fixing those problems, because it just seemed like in the last 3 or 4 games, it just seems like that communication has gotten so much better. And it's still some wrinkles in that, but sometimes progression is more important than, because you're not going to fix everything. You're not going to fix everything. There is no such thing as a perfect defense, and Grambling does not have that, but they have a good enough defense, and they've shown that. I can, like the game against Alabama A&M, Deuce, we've talked about it numerous of times. There were games that Grambling really shouldn't have won, but it was their defense that kept them in the game. The defense was getting turnovers. The defense was getting sacks. The defense was getting offenses off the field, and regardless of how tired they were still making plays. So that's what you kind of have to understand, is that the whole problem that it wasn't the defense. The whole thing wasn't on the defense. It was really the offense, because dude, we said that in early in the season that the defense isn't majority of the problem. It's the offense. Even though the defense did have trouble communicating, they've gotten better at that. And now the offense is starting to pitch in with that. So that's also important, you have to understand. But what I wrote down here, I feel like it's very important to me, and I wrote this down, and there are key players that I want to give a shout out to. Grambling State defense has a recent history of being highly opportunistic, known for their consistently forcing turnovers and even scoring defensive touchdowns. Key players have earned all SWAC honors and national recognition for their disruptive performances. Andrew Jones, for example, Blake Davis, for example, Shane Mazzato, Bryce Cade, John Horton, all these guys in general, even Jalen Gillard. These guys have shown just how important it is to put yourself in position to help your team win. And sometimes, and as they always say, sometimes big time plays make big time plays. So it just shows you that overall that this defense is just not a defense that you want to sleep on. And even with the special teams, Grambling special teams unit has also contributed to the team's outcomes, while sometimes, here it is, facing challenges. But the unit has delivered, and this is what's going to get you right here, key moments such as the Davis block field goal, and then Delano Franklin's punt return against Alabama A&M that could seal the game. So Grambling special teams over the years has always been, in my opinion, the key factor on Grambling's success as far as winning games, and especially their defense. But I feel like the guys that I've just listed have shown that it's when you have brotherhood on the defensive side or offensive side of the ball, that matters. Because when you have brotherhood on that side, then all guys contribute. It's not a one-man show. It's not a two-man show. It's all of us. It takes all of us to make this unit tough for anyone to face. And I feel like, Deuce, like you just said, Grambling's defense is going to be the key factor in these last two games, especially against Alcorn, because let's not forget, Alcorn has a good offense, okay? So especially going into that homecoming, Grambling's defensive communication, defensive tackling, and, just getting turnovers is going to be a key factor in this game, because in regards of this game between Alcorn and Southern, it's really Alcorn State that Grambling's defense is really going to have to dial up some turnovers, dial up some kind of way to prevent Alcorn from running their own show in their own homecoming crowd. And I think that's the big key factor in this season and the destiny of Grambling State football program.
Like, I'm going to say this about Graham, though. Even if the season doesn't finish how they want, I'm nothing more than proud because they improved on last season. Michael, I told you this was their first winning season since 2019. That is huge because this is building towards the right track. You finish, let's just say hypothetically, you went out. Going into the next season, in the offseason, players are going to want to, winning programs attract players.
Yeah.
Grambling, Mickey Joseph, one thing I say about this, he knows how to recruit well. He can recruit really well. The fact that he's able to recruit and maintain them when a lot of players, when they don't get playtime, they go in the transfer portal. Let me get my words out. He's able to keep the players that he already has. He's able to already recruit. You're coming off a winning season. You can go pick up these players from Louisiana and Texas. I do say, yes, he needs to go expand out a little bit more. I would like to see him expand out to some other states. But look, what he's doing, the job that he's doing with recruiting, I'm nothing more than proud. But you go into next season on this high momentum. You have you found the identity of your offense and the defense. Nate, you told me earlier that this is his first year really running the offense. Next year, you're just building upon it. This is how you continue to, repeat level of success. With Jackson, I don't like to talk about, Dion was a blueprint. I don't like to use him as a blueprint all the time. But I look at it when he said, Jackson, his first season with Jackson was not the best. The second season, they got better. Then the third season, they got better. And then the program just continued to build on that. Although I you don't want to copy Jackson's success, I think how they did it is how Grambling should do it in these coming years, because I believe that they need to get back to the top of the SWAC West. It shouldn't, rightfully so, to all the Prairie View fans watching. Yes, congratulations that y'all had a good season, but respectfully, the SWAC West belongs to Grambling or Southern, in my opinion. But
it really belongs to Grambling, because I've been Grambling fan ever since I was just a little newborn baby. So I grew up around, uncles. I grew up around, majority of my family's with the Grambling. And it's one thing that I've known about Grambling throughout my 24 years of life is that Grambling was the face of the SWAC West and was the face of the SWAC Conference. Grambling was the team that people used to fear on playing against. It was coaches after Eddie Robinson. It was Doug Williams. It was Rod Broadway. It was all those coaches that continued that legacy. And it just seems like after I can't think of his name right now, but after Roderick Fobbs left, it just seems like Grambling legacy just took a downslide. And Deuce, man, you have talked about this numerous times before, is that the face of Grambling's football program in general, it needs to get back to where Grambling used to be. Grambling is known to be, and that's to be dominant on control, on being that team that you don't want to face. Grambling used to be the hungriest team in the SWAC, and I know that for a fact. And that's not even just an opinion, that's a fact. So I just feel like in these next coming up years, it's great that, Grambling's first win the season 2019. But if you really think about it, it shouldn't have even gotten to that. But at the same time, what we have to understand is that the legacy of a team is in your control. And that's like, I'm going to jump over. That's like Alabama, for example. Their legacy continue because of the fact that because coaches at that university, they built on that legacy, and they brought the players in to help build on that legacy, and the players help build on that legacy. And now Grambling, they were building on that legacy for a while, but then they took a downslide, and we thought Hugh Jackson was going to bring that back. But let's be honest, Hugh Jackson, his coaching resume, it wasn't the best, but it was worth a shot. And Hugh Jackson, even though he wasn't the worst coach in the world, but he just was not it. So then you bring in a person that is well known to, the Grambling football program. You bring in Mickey Joseph, who, if I remember correctly, was the wide receivers coach when Grambling was in the Celebration Bowl back, I believe, in 2017 or 16. So now it's just like you bring in Mickey Joseph. He understands how to build a legacy, and he's continuing to do that. And then now you bring in the 7-3 season. You bring in the first win season 2019, which I think is a step in the right direction. But my question here now is, can you continue to build on that legacy starting from here all the way until, I don't know, to the end of time, I guess, in your life? So you that's just what it takes, because Grambling needs to get back to being the face of the SWAC, and the fear of a lot of Grambling fans, you say, is fear of the G. That's what we need. That's what Grambling needs. Teams need to fear the G, because Deuce, man, you said this. No one feared Grambling in the SWAC media. No player from any team listed Grambling as the toughest opponent, because of the fact the program has slid, and now teams like Jackson State or Alabama State are being known as toughest opponent. But back then it was Grambling. So Grambling just needs to find ways to bring back that legacy that Eddie Robinson built, that Roderick Fobbs built, that Doug Williams built. That's all. Right. That's what matters here.
Yeah. I think when we talk about those names in general, I mean, we're talking about Grambling coaches. We're talking about the coaches that, before they even started coaching, their pathway through even being a coach in that position at Grambling, they had to have a little bit of Grambling roots. What happened was, I think, firing Roderick Fobbs and then moving to Hugh Jackson, you went away from your roots. Your roots were to have a coach that had some type of resonation or a resume with Grambling, or has been looking to the school or something that you just can't go away from those roots, because there's a different type of feeling when you have a coach that has Grambling roots for real. So Mickey Joseph, of course, coaching between the times of it was either between 2012 and 2016 range. He was somewhere here with Grambling, but the biggest thing behind it is he was able to come back, and we know that Mickey Joseph, he just came from Nebraska. He could easily be coaching at any FBS program or FCS program easily. So what I think it all came down to, Grambling failed from their roots, and then they came back into their roots. Mickey Joseph, they tried to, even Eric Dooley used to be a coach here at Grambling. They tried to bring Mickey Joseph and Eric Dooley back together, and it just didn't mesh well. So Mickey Joseph had the keys to the city, basically, as well as Jason Rollins with that defense. They were able to make it mesh well together. As I feel like the roller coaster was going up, and it went down, of course, towards the end of last season. Then it's coming right back up. So all you have to do is stack seasons. So this is in my eyes, this is Mickey Joseph. Like I said, I'm gonna say it again. This is Mickey Joseph's first season. It's second season on paper, but in my eyes, in my brain, in my perspective, this is Mickey Joseph's first season. So what is he gonna do in his second official season? In my eyes, at least, as an offensive coordinator, and with all these other guys, Andrew Frazier, Keith Jones Jr., C.J. Knight, you have a plethora of more players. Barron Miles Jr. You have everybody who can give you 5 receptions and 100 receiving yards. You have running backs that can give you 10 plus carries and 100 yards. Everybody can do a job. The defense can do a job. So I mean, like I told y'all, the defense has always been good for Grambling for years on years. Our only Celebration Bowl win, remember when we played against North Carolina Central, was a special teams block. We won 10-9 in that game. I was actually there for that whole Kincaid year. So like, even just going through that whole scale, we found ways to win. Even when we had Kincaid, when it's almost like the Cam Newton situation. It's just they didn't finish. Remember, Cam Newton and the Panthers were going crazy on everybody. Ended up playing against the defense of the Legion of Boom and Seattle Seahawks. Beat them, get to the Super Bowl, play against the Broncos, and then that happened, and they end up prevailing. Grambling, Kincaid, Martez Carter, Chad Williams, all those boys from the whole season, putting up 40 and 50 against every single SWAC school, and then it came down to a lower scoring game, and who prevailed? The defense, the special teams defense. So Grambling's roots is slowly coming back, and the one thing I keep bringing up references from the Josh McCormick interview I did today here at KGRM was he said he gave a key stat. He said in games where there's a block punt, because you remember there was a block punt and against Jackson State at the HBCU Las Vegas Classic and all that. So he said if any game there is a block punt, that team has an 80% chance of winning. And when he heard that stat, that's when everything kind of went up. Basically, a spark plug blew up for everybody on the sidelines during that game, and I think momentum from there it carried on, and we got a different. The restorative order is slowly being restored.
Yeah, and look, them 2016, 2017 years, I may have been in 5th and 4th grade, but that is the best I've ever seen Grambling play. And, you know, like you said about that defense surely did win them the Celebration Bowl that year. Right. And, you know, the defense is literally just identity. I think at times Grambling is like, they don't know what their identity of the team is. I believe at the beginning of the season, yes, they put on a strong start against Langston, but I guess that next week against Ohio State, you know, when they got beat 70-0, it's like the life got sucked out the team. But as the week starts to progress, you see more confidence, you see more players stepping up.
Yeah.
The defense, I know that after that Ohio State game, I mean, man, Gardner and Jeremiah Smith, no player wants to do that. No player wants to, you know, no team, you know, wants to get beat 70-0. But I mean, look, you know, you're a smaller school. You're playing against the defending champs, #1 in the country. You know, I didn't blame Grambling for the loss. You know, a lot of people bashed Grambling's team online for that loss. I didn't.
But see, a lot of people.
I said this is a money game. These boys are coming here to get paid. They're coming here to put their names on a higher stage. You know, don't take this loss with a grain of salt.
Yeah.
But I could see that in the coming weeks after, when they play, Texas A&M Commerce and they play Eastern Kentucky, the defense, it kind of looked, a little bit But after that week, even though they lost to State Fair Classic, even though they lost homecoming, I could see that defense. They were showing that they wanted to fight. They wanted to win. Ever since then, ever since the Jackson State game, a game that they weren't supposed to win, the defense has been the best in the SWAC, in my opinion. They've been playing better than Jackson's defense, in my opinion. I can't say too much about the offense, but the defense right now, in my eyes, is the best in the SWAC. But I want to jump to this next topic before, we talk about, Michael, because I know you wanted to talk about the whole brawl that happened on Saturday and how you thought, you didn't agree with, the suspensions. But closing the season out, what would y'all just give Mickey Joseph's grade? Me, I'm a person star. I'm gonna give it a B+. You Nate, I like how you mentioned, because now I'm trying to think about it. Yes, this is his first season in my eyes, because last season it was a bad season, first season as a head coach, but this season you're really, involved with the game plan. You're involved in the offensive system. You get your full hands on, you're not getting like the leftovers, from the previous coach. This year, although he started slow, yes, and that Langston game was a dominant win. Ohio State, shook a lot of people's heads, but he started 0-2 in the SWAC play and has been winning ever since. He's improved on all the stuff that I criticized him on. He improved on it. I really think he really helped bring those guys together after the T-set injury, helped the team feel just as one. I think if you just close this season out and you win your Bayou Classic, that grade goes to a B+. Although, it would have been an A if you win homecoming and State Fair Classic. I hate losing in the State Fair. I hate it because I'm from Dallas. I hate seeing PV fans go home happy. And, I just hate losing homecoming because that's where our alumni are at. But Mickey Joseph has done everything right in my books this season. I have nothing to complain about.
Yeah, Nate, I'm gonna let you take a second on this.
My grade for this season, although it's not over, we know and we have high hopes for finishing and winning out to finish 9-3. Mickey Joseph, I give his grade, and I give the whole Grambling State coaching staff. I wanted to go B+ too, but I'll probably have to go A- just off the simple fact of what I mentioned earlier about the SWAC West implications. Of course, you're unlucky when you get caught with the SWAC scheduling of having to play PV and Texas Southern, and you get caught slipping by 1 point on homecoming day against Texas Southern, and then you lose in a devastating aftermath at State Fair Classic in your first SWAC game. So, I mean, to be able to bounce back and you have the highest win streak in the SWAC right now, that says something. That says that you caught a rhythm, and hopefully you only get stronger. You're only good as your last game. So finishing it off at Southern Classic, I'll say at the Bayou Classic against Southern or whatever, I'd say that basically will put the bow on the gift there, and pretty much Grambling fans would be a little bit more happier. That bad taste from homecoming would be out of their mouth, and pushing on for next season. I mean, from there you have spring training, you have all season. You have to get stronger. You have no choice, because everybody's going to be expecting to see you as the SWAC West champion and in that SWAC Championship game next season.
Yeah, for sure. I totally agree with both of you guys' grade. I'm gonna go with A- as well, only because of some fact, because and Mickey Joseph, you started the season off real slow, and you didn't start the season off on the winning side. But I gave him an A- because of the fact that you progressed. And I think as a coach, it's all about how you finish the season off, even though the season isn't technically over with yet. Like you said, Nathan, he started off 0-2, and now he has the highest win streak in the SWAC right now. I think that's very important. Not only plus the simple fact of the quarterback situation he's in, you were able to find ways to win, especially against a team like Bethune-Cookman, who, I got to be honest here, was coming in real hot, because Bethune-Cookman was actually finding themselves and finding that rhythm, on how to win ball games coming into Grambling, and Grambling intercepted that. And I just feel like that's coaching mindset has something to do with that, because it's all about game plan. When you play games like, I guess, especially against like Bethune-Cookman and Jackson State, and then not only that, you beat Jackson State yet again another year, especially in a big event like the Las Vegas Classic, which I think they should keep, because that, I'm gonna be honest, when you have two dominant HBCUs playing in the Las Vegas and known as a party city as Las Vegas, as great as Las Vegas is, I think they should keep that. But I think, when you beat Jackson State twice, and as dominant as Jackson State is, without a doubt, but when you find ways to overcome the struggles and overcome the situation from being 0-2 to now you're like 7-3 now in the regular season. And then not only that, you start 0-2 and now you have a win streak, which you could possibly end up winning the SWAC West if Prairie View loses the last two games. So I just think that Mickey Joseph has shown that you might start off slow, but it's always about how you finish. And that's what we have to understand in football. It's not how you start, it's how you finish. And so far, Mickey Joseph has started off slow, but now he's finding ways to win on the winning end. Like my dad always says, sometimes you have to win ugly. And Grambling has found ways, Mickey Joseph has found ways, the coaching staff has found ways to win ugly in even regards of, how the game goes. And, this season also is going to determine that. Even though you have 18 players suspended, how are you going to progress from that as a coach? So, as of right now, I'm going to give him an A-, but, towards the end of the season, I want to see how well he can progress with just 18 players suspended. And what is the message to his players? So, first and foremost, I'm proud of how Mickey Joseph has overcome the obstacles of the struggles that he's had as a head coach in this. And I'm going to agree, in his first season as a coach, because his first season, it didn't go well. But this is actually his first season, because it counts to me. Because when you get a team like Grambling back to the winning ways in 2019, I think that's a huge accomplishment here. That's probably one of the biggest statements in Grambling football, to get this team back to their winning ways. So I'm going to go with A- here, because of how he's been able to overcome the obstacles and shift this team's focus from, okay, we started off slow, but that don't mean we can't finish the season off. And now we're finishing the season off on the winning end. We're one of the best win streaks in the SWAC, and possibly that can continue this weekend against Alcorn State. In regardless of their homecoming, Graham can still take care of business in these last two games, especially, and I know we all can agree on this, one of the most important games in the regular season in Grambling football, the Bayou Classic.
Right. I think what the benefit for us is, how like with the Saints, I see Drew Brees down there as many times as Drew Brees had those 7-9 seasons, and he's been throwing to different receivers his whole career. You probably know the name of Keith Kirkwood. Nobody knows who Keith Kirkwood, but Keith Kirkwood, Cam Meredith, it doesn't matter. Whoever's out for the game, I know Hayden Benoit will be throwing to whoever is going to be out there. So I really do feel that good about Hayden Benoit, to have a gunslinger back there. That's what we need. Like you need flash. So Grambling's looking good in my eyes. I like these next 2 weeks coming up. Going to have a long drive to Mississippi and Lorman, Mississippi, of course, and a long drive to New Orleans. It'll be worth it. But I'm excited for all the vibes. This is the best way to end the season.
But with Hayden Benoit, you have to also think about this too. His future hangs in the balance as far as where Grambling goes from here. Because now, it's like, if Hayden Benoit can continue to play the way he played against Bethune-Cookman, I'm gonna scratch away the Alabama A&M game, because let's be honest, he wasn't prepared for that. But he got comfortable in the Bethune-Cookman game, and he could possibly get comfortable, in the Alcorn State game. It just determines on how he walks onto the field. Here's what people got to understand. When you are a first-time, starting freshman or starting sophomore, it's all about how you present yourself when you step out on that green grass, on that green turf. And Hayden Benoit, if he was watching right now, my message to you, hey Benoit, listen to me. Continue to step out on the field like you did against Bethune-Cookman. Hold yourself to a high standard, because when you hold yourself to a high standard, that also means one thing, that you are the potential face and starter for Grambling State, possibly maybe even next season. Because the quarterback competition, it happens almost every year for Grambling, so he could possibly be the face of a starting quarterback to help Grambling continue, like I said not too long ago, continue that winning legacy from here on out. So that's what he has to do, because Hayden Benoit can be the face of that Grambling offense and be the face of starting and leading this Grambling team to the team that we've all known from 16 to 17, like with Devontae Kincaid, Martez Carter, Chad Williams, the list goes on. So he could possibly be that guy to continue to do what Devontae Kincaid did for Grambling. Not saying he's Devontae Kincaid. No one's Devontae Kincaid. No one's Devontae Kincaid is his own self. But what I'm saying is that Hayden Benoit has to hold himself to a high standard and tell himself that even though I'm a walk-on freshman, that doesn't matter. I can still perform at a high level, just as I did against Bethune-Cookman. I can continue to do what T-Tech couldn't finish. Because, as I always say, what you start, you must finish. Hayden Benoit can do that. And I feel like he can be the potential face of that Grambling offense in the future.
I agree. However the season plays out, I'm here for it. But we have reached the hour mark. Michael, or actually, I think Michael.
I'm back.
Are you back? Okay. Yeah, so we are reaching the 1 hour mark. Michael, I know you did want to talk about Cam Newton's comments on, this Grambling Bethune-Cookman. Before we close this, I give the mic to you. But I will say this. You had said that it was unfair. You said the suspensions was unfair, the fine. But I just want to hear your perspective on it.
Yeah, I understand that the brawl shouldn't have happened the way it should have. And that's fair. And it shouldn't have. And, Mickey Joseph shouldn't have said what he said. And that's true. But, I would have said the same thing, because you're not only disrespecting my players, but you're disrespecting me as your opponent. And you're also disrespecting our university, because you're coming here to play us. You are supposed to be respecting our home venue just as much as we're respecting you on coming to our home venue to play us. And I feel like that, don't get me wrong, I understand, players must be suspended or be held accountable for their actions. And I get that. But the fact that Grambling had 18 players suspended compared to Bethune-Cookman's 9, I just feel like that's just if you look at the suspension rate, it's kind of like, why is there 18 and there are only 9 for Bethune-Cookman? If you look back at the video, all the Bethune-Cookman players was on Grambling's sideline. And my dad, he literally explained to me, well, Bethune-Cookman, they were on Grambling's sideline. I understand that. But it doesn't matter. The fact is, everyone was involved. Every Bethune-Cookman player was involved. It wasn't just Grambling. It was Bethune-Cookman. The fight didn't have to go as far as it did. But if you remember, Nathan, I know you were there, is that to me, it was one key play. It was number 9 from Bethune-Cookman. He came around his coach and threw a punch. Then it started between players being thrown and helmets being thrown and fists being thrown. I just feel like that if you're going to give Grambling 18, you need to give Grambling, it should be over 10 for Bethune-Cookman as well, because every single player and coach was involved. I don't care what no one says. Every Bethune-Cookman player was involved. And plus, they were always on Grambling's sideline. And if I remember correctly, is that if a team leaves their sideline, there should be more players ejected.
Yeah, Michael. Yeah, you're right. That it's just.
I'm just trying to be sure I'm not tripping.
No, you're not tripping at all. But this is the way of the dynamic of which it is. So, is this your freshman or sophomore year?
Say again.
Is it? I was asking Deuce if this was his freshman or sophomore year.
Oh, me?
Yeah.
Oh, this is my sophomore year.
So you had a chance you were here last season as well with Miles Crowley. Okay. So usually during Grambling games, when halftime happens, of course, usually you have both bands usually come, but Bethune-Cookman's band didn't come. So it was just Grambling who obviously went onto the field, did the halftime performance, came out the field, and there was just a lot of time to go by or whatever. So by the time Grambling is coming down the Tiger Walk, Bethune-Cookman's people are coming down, and usually Grambling, the players only have maybe like 5 to 8 minutes to truly warm up. It was just a lot of time and opportunity, if we're being honest. Grambling was already coming down. Bethune-Cookman had plenty of players coming down. They already had basically majority of their players down, but a few lingering players for Bethune-Cookman leaving late out of the bathroom, coming late, and then that's when the mixture comes through. That has to be a solid communication. Never in Grambling history there's been something that started from the Tiger Walk and then transpired all the way from the other side to the Jumbotron. So that comes to obviously the security and everything that goes into that. And then further, when obviously Bethune-Cookman is on Grambling sideline, but it'd be different if, like, you know how in the NBA when scuffle happens and then all the benches just come in clear, whatever. That the game hasn't been resumed just yet, so they hadn't even a chance to even go to their sideline to come off of their sideline. So they were already on Grambling sideline to begin with. So it was a lot of mix up with that, and then to the players of maybe the unfair finding. When we look at the unfair finding, I mean, Grambling, if you look at the videos and the footage of it, that's technically what it is. It's one every 4 Grambling players, there's one Bethune-Cookman player potentially on the ground in a escalation, in a fight. So when you look at it, I think the suspension is fair. You got a chance, again, making reference to when I got a chance to talk to a few other players. Some of the players only got banned for halftime for the rest of the Bethune-Cookman game, and then Alcorn, some players will be able to come back in the second half, only getting suspended in the first half. So that helps us a little bit. Do I know the severity of some players and who's got suspended? No, I do not. But definitely some players will be suspended for only one half of the Alcorn game, and then that lets you know if they come back, they'll be good for Bayou Classic. So that's credit to that. So with that, it's an unfortunate situation. Of course, everybody was involved but the people that were caught on footage and were actually doing things. If you were just talking badmouthing or you were trying to pull people off, obviously you weren't suspended. There was one Bethune-Cookman player sitting pretty by himself on the bench, wasn't even bothered by what was going on. We had players spitting on the G, talking, a lot of chirping and this, that, and third. We had Bethune-Cookman people disrespecting our athletic director, Travion Scott. So it was a lot of things that transpired. He even gave a statement out. So, like, everything that came down, I hope I answered some of your questions, but everything kind of played out because it was inevitable. It was bound to happen because of what transpired down the Tiger Walk, and it literally went 100 yards.
I mean, look, I think this all started with that post that Bethune-Cookman made, the whole week before the game. And look, I'm going to say this. Before the game even started, their team was chirping at the band directors. Like, Bethune-Cookman came into the stadium. Like, I feel like they wanted to set a record straight. They wanted to, leave the hole with something, like a statement.
Yeah.
But you leave that on the field. Why are there 4 players lollygagging? And I say this, everybody can agree. Grambling always lets the visiting team down on the field first. You can see it in the video. They were waiting. You could see the 4 Bethune-Cookman players lollygagging and chirping with the team.
Right.
Who knows what was said? Who knows what was said that led to the scuffle? Who knows what was said? But it just shouldn't have escalated the way it did. Now, look, I'm gonna say this: $40,000. I didn't expect that big of a fine. But I mean, when you have, like you said, Nate, for every 4 Grambling players and 1 Bethune-Cookman player, that's bound to happen. I mean, in the video, I seen random people going up and fighting people. I mean, I saw my old roommate run up to somebody and punch somebody, and I'm like, dude, what? Like, what are you doing? So, like, I think at the same time, you don't come and disrespect the G, because one thing about Grambling, love or hate, at the end of the day, they're going to respect their name. They're going to respect the image. They're not going to let nobody come down, in trash talkers. I mean, last year when Jackson State, the band came down and trash talked us on the G. You know, the way we responded, we just don't mess with that. Graham fam does not mess with that.
Right.
I'm glad that you mentioned, you know, that some of these players are only suspended a half. That does help, but to the severity, I don't know all the players suspended right now. I'm hoping that it's not any major players, but hopefully everybody can come back before a classic. But I will say this: I hope this fight never happens again, because as much as you want to put respect on your program and respect on your on your turf, it's a bad look in the SWAC size. It's a bad look on social media. It's a bad look for people who are looking on the outside in. People don't know, people don't know that this goes on in the FBS. This went on with, Florida and Tennessee just last year. But people are going to see this, since this is a smaller HBCU, these people don't know how to act. So that's why I say it's a bad look. But, we see this all the time in hockey. We see this in college sports. It's nothing new. It happens. But to the level of that extent, you just don't want it to happen. But I think for future references with games with this much buildup, you got to have more security on there. You got to make sure your players are getting down on the field. You don't want a repeat of this.
Yeah, but see, the thing that's getting me about this is that ever since that fight happened, people have been calling Grambling ghetto. People have been calling the SWAC ghetto. But my thing with this is, what do you call Michigan State and Michigan's rivalry brawl and all the brawls that be having? What do you call Ohio State and Michigan's brawl? What do you call Florida and Tennessee's brawl? Like, what do you call? No one is talking about those. And I'm sorry, but I refuse to sit here and sit quiet and let people talk down, talking about how ghetto Grambling is and how ghetto the SWAC is. First of all, in that case, then the Big Ten is ghetto. In that case, then the SEC is ghetto. So I don't think that ghetto-tivity has anything to do with how this happens. This is all part of the game. Now, should it happen? No. But it should not determine a university or determine a team. Like, it's just crazy to me that people are talking more about this brawl than they talk about Ohio State and Michigan, or they don't talk about Michigan State and Michigan. Those two teams fight every single year, but no one talks about them. Well, know why? Because it's not that important. But let it be these smaller HBCU teams. Oh, all of a sudden it's important. I refuse, and I don't care what no one has to say. I refuse to sit here and let people talk about, oh, this is why you're in the SWAC. Because someone said in the video, this is why y'all in the SWAC, because y'all are ghetto. First of all, being in the SWAC has nothing to do with being ghetto. I'm sorry.
I call the SWAC the prestige conference of HBCU football.
Being in the SWAC is a privilege because the SWAC is known for their dominance in every single sport, from soccer to basketball. It's all the above. But being in the SWAC has nothing to do with being ghetto. I mean, let's be honest. Bethune-Cookman and Grambling, they do have a rivalry in the history books. It's the same way with Southern. It's the same way with Jackson State. It's the same way with Prairie View. It's no different. But I'm kind of getting tired of, guys, and I'm sorry if I'm getting worked up about this a little bit, but I'm getting sick and tired of people overlooking this brawl that Ohio State and Michigan have, and Michigan State and Michigan and all these other teams have, but no one's talking about them. And I don't even care about none of that. Oh, but they're in a different conference. They're a bigger school. That don't matter. That don't matter. And I don't even want to hear that because it don't matter. It's still football at the end of the day. It's still football teams fighting. That does not matter the level. Fights happen. Fight is a fight. It doesn't matter the school size. And so I just refuse to sit here and let people talk about how ghetto Grambling is or how ghetto the SWAC is. Okay, then what about the Big Ten? What about the SEC? What about the Pac-12? I can sit here and list a few teams right now that fight almost every year, but no one talks about them. I'm sorry, guys. I refuse to sit here and just sit here and let this die down. And guys like Cam Newton, don't get me wrong. I love and respect to you, brother, but you have in your career have known to been starting fights in the NFL because of your cockiness and your ways on dancing on people's end zones and over exaggerating when you shouldn't even be supposed to doing that. So I'm don't even sit here and act like you know about Grambling when you ain't even stepped foot on that university. The only HBCU that you stepped on is Delaware State because of their fame and because of the fact that First Take took you in when you really could have stayed over there with your podcast. I'm just saying, don't sit here and talk like you know about Grambling when you don't know nothing about Grambling. You don't know nothing about class because you literally just fought their mascot. What kind of professionalism is that? You said talk about how Grambling and how Grambling's head coach shouldn't have said what he said. But let's think back to your career. Let's think back to what you just did to Delaware State. If I remember correctly, their mascot. You literally just slapped him out of cockiness. I'm like, come on now. Don't even sit here and talk about being professional, because let's be honest, you ain't never been professional even in your career. Like you probably been professional in, making stats and making Carolina well known, and especially, winning the Super Bowl. I mean, not winning the Super Bowl, but playing in the Super Bowl. But that's all good and dolly dandy. Especially, I don't know if y'all heard, but that comment he said about Drew Brees, let's be honest, you will never be as great as Drew Brees was. But at the same time, don't see it talk like no one would know who Drew Brees was. The only two teams that probably know who you were is Carolina and Auburn. You helped Auburn's program to be what they never were. I mean, they were in recent years, but you lifted Auburn to a high standard. But don't sit here and act like you know about HBCU when you never stepped on them. That's just that's just bottom line. If you don't know nothing about HBCU, don't sit here and talk about them like you know everything about them when you never stepped on their campus. I'm just saying. I know I'm probably being biased. I know I'm probably taking up a lot of time. I just had to say that because I refuse to sit here and let people like Cam Newton and let people who don't know nothing about HBCUs talk like they're ghetto when your fan bases and your team fight every year. That's just, man, get out of here with that.
I mean, Michael, it's a reasonable explanation. But look, we are reaching, our time. We're at 1 minute, an hour actually, and 16 minutes. One of our longest specials. Nate, you're always welcome to get back on the show for HBCU Sports. Anytime, you're welcome. Do you just have anything you want to say to the viewers before you head out?
I just want to start off by thanking you guys for having me on here. Just being able to create multiple spaces for not only HBCU but sports talk in general, and being able to expand. You guys are giving me a little bit of inspiration because I'm going to end up creating my own Instagram pages for strictly sports journalism, and then just have obviously just my own main page be my main thing for family and friends and stuff like that. But overall, I mean, Grambling's been good to me. Grambling's slowly evolving. Been slowly evolving the radio station. I think even there's even an opportunity for students. I think Grambling's one of the one school that if you want to do something as far as broadcast, if you college of business, criminal justice, like everything is hands-on for all the students and the jobs and opportunities here. So even if you wanted to come to the radio station, Deuce or Michael for one episode or something like that, and just talk ball and stuff like that, you're always welcome to. You can follow me at Nate Exclusive. That will be the new brand. I'll be sending that to y'all soon. GSU Radio, and then I'll be able to shout y'all's pages out as well. So I just the whole experience is just these last 2 weeks, and then we're going to end up going into Grambling basketball, who's obviously on the surge. That we have Antonio Munoz, he's number 15. He's on the tear. So I mean, I'm nothing but Grambling. I have high hopes for the end of these last 2 weeks. Soccer's doing well as well. So I mean, it's going up, and I'm hoping the trajectory just keeps, because I feel like we're going places.
Me too. But Nate, you're always welcome on. I'll talk to you after we get you on, but it was nice having you on. And Michael, this has probably been one of our best specials. It's been a time. It's been something that's been something brewing. We got to do another one soon. But to always, like we always say, thank y'all to everybody that is watching. We say share, but this time our goal for Gram Fam, get us to at least 600 views, and the other HBCU supporters that we have, get us to 1,000. Help us finish that goal and get to 1,000 views. We like the active support y'all are in the comments. Link will be posted. Actually, this video will probably be posted after we're done recording this, or once this is off live. But Michael, do you have any closing remarks before we head out?
Yeah, it was a huge honor to have Nathan McCarter on here. I've listened to that guy from basketball to football for these past consecutive years, these past probably 2 or 3 years, and it was just a huge honor to have a person in the Grambling radio station just to be on here on a YouTube on Inside the Locker Room that we're trying to grow every single day. So the fact that we have someone from Grambling to be on this stage, I just feel like that's a step in the right direction for our HBCU segment, dudes. And then we're gonna have some HBCU players from
Yes.
Texas Southern and Alabama State, all the above. Like we're growing a whole lot more faster than I anticipated. So
Me too.
and I'm first of all, I'm extremely proud of you all and the support that you have constantly been giving us. If it wasn't,
Who would have thought Andrew Body's family would be tuned into our stuff, commenting on our stuff? Like Andrew Body's probably one of our favorite quarterbacks in the SWAC, and he's actively, his family's actively watching, which means he's actively watching our stuff. Like that's just big stuff. We got these younger Grambling players that are finna join the podcast in coming weeks. We got players from Texas Southern finna be on the podcast. Players from hopefully Prairie View, Alabama State. We're trying to work to get Jackson State players on there. So the podcast is growing, and hopefully this gets big enough to where we can get other collaborations with other HBCU content creators. Because look, I do see the other content creators, and look, I think we're probably one of the youngest ones out right now. Yeah. And look, we try our best, to model after them, but do it in our own way. And I think that's what we are succeeding at. Michael, I would have never thought in our first 4 weeks of doing this, we would hit 1.3K views on a video. I never would have thought that. I would have never thought we would jump from 30 subscribers to 225 in the span of 2 months. That's just thanks to y'all support. And this is what keeps us going every day. You kind of see, you look on our channel and you see I love my brothers Benji and Adam, and we're gonna get a video of Inside. We're gonna get a whole group video going probably this weekend. But you just see HBCU football, and that's just because we've just been so determined to get this content back out to y'all. Y'all are fans are just what makes us keep going, and that's all I can say is thank you.
Yes, the dedication is real, and I want to thank all of you. And according to Deuce, everyone has been asking about me, but look, let me just take this time, It ain't just me here, you know what I'm saying? Y'all got to give it to your boy Deuce over here. That's my HBCU partner right there. So it's like, it ain't just me, doing all this. It's him, all this is because of him. I'm just a host on this. So it's like, I can't take all the credit, but I do appreciate y'all and the support that y'all have for me and the support that y'all have for me and Deuce on what we're trying to do, because we're not, if anything, we're not trying to hurt. We're trying to help HBCUs. So, like I said, who else to do it but Inside the Locker Room with your boy Deuce and Michael. So we're going to constantly keep feeding y'all with content, and we appreciate y'all for y'all support. Please keep doing it, man. I love y'all and I appreciate y'all.
Agreed. And before I close this up, I will say this before we go to the end credits. I will say this. Unfortunately, there probably won't be a video Monday because I got band practice on Sunday.
Yeah.
But we'll try to get a video out Monday or Tuesday for our weekly episode to recap the latest week going into the final closing weeks of the season. But as always, stay safe, like, comment, subscribe, and help us reach our goal of 1,000.
As I always say, y'all, grace, peace. Love y'all.